Rahubu, brothers and sisters. This is the Holy Tabernacle Ministries. I'm the minister, student teacher, Mudhuta, Nudima, Kahagadu El, and what is the day today? Today's the 26th of what the Tamahu calls the month of January. The Spanish would say enero, right?
Yes. Sí.
See, okay. So we're coming to you again live. This Tabernacle 720, and I actually today we want to be a little bit more formal in what we do. I'll cut it back on later. It'll come back on. I just got to move the mouse a little bit. And I want to start off by saying Abdul Kul Mashuta Zer Bazum B Samus Putinta. And I want to start reading the prayer that was in the Holy Tabernacle Ministries Family Guide, which I've been trying to learn this week, but I don't know it all by heart yet, so I got to read it off paper. But I'm gonna say it in Nuwabic, and then I'm gonna say it in English because I already did the translation. So here we go. Ya Elohim, Suanu Nafisa. Hade Yabu Nazul Dahul Zer Daur Neut Hadoy Neut Tuti Kul Abmelu Nasor Neut Faraf Ekelu Nasor Kul Unu Bashoro Khala Neut Abero Ronuk Rosukutwo Zer Tum Ronuk Reut Khala Neut Anzero Ronuk Irutukutwo Zer Tum Reut Anukut Liya Khadem Tum Maluk Asnub Neut Shil Pul Hasun Shil Mukhdumao Ya Uye Zabish Shil Kul Elohim Manu Antukut Ata Shil Pul Dayub Shil Dayubu Pul Ur Hageg Shil Ur Hagegu Pul Halug Shil Kul Kalugo. So, this is the English translation. Anu's gifts descend into and around me. Guide me in all I do. Help me that I may help all human beings. Let me speak from your heads and not mine. Let me see from your eyes and not mine. I am to serve, not rule. Make me the best of your servants. O leader of all Elohim Anu, you are the light of lights, the truth of truths, the creator of all creators. And that's the end. There's actually another prayer from Marduk to Anu, but we won't go over that one this week. We just want to start with the Yad Elohim prayer. So now, I want to step over here and show y'all the our calendar. So this is on UNM.net where you can see this. My bad, let me get out the way. Actually, let me get over here so I can show y'all. So, of course, these are the days of the week. This is the first week, 5 days, Anu, Antum, Nunamnir, Ninti, Mother Ninti, and then Nudimud. And then Akna is the second week. Same 5 days. Third week, same 5 days, and of course the fourth week we only have 4 days. And you can always tell exactly what time it is in the Wabik. Right now it's the 28th, 1st, 11th, 2nd, and then maybe we can call that thirds. I'm not sure, but that'll be the seconds in English. But anyway, it's the second month of Tefnut. You can see on top, year 75. From June 26, 1945. Did you get that good? Okay.
But no everything, baby. You need to move a little more. Very a little.
Right,
Perfect,
okay.
perfect.
Sorry, yeah, we're working on some camera stuff. So.
Yeah.
All right. Pretty sure all Nuwabians are patient by now, especially if they've been in AMOL. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So right here, where that green dot is here, the green, that circles the dot, that's exactly what day we're on, so you don't get mixed up looking at the whole calendar. And then, of course, running across the whole top are the names of the months of the Tamaran deities. And then up here, it also breaks down the week Wah, which is first. So Wah Usbu, Yawum Antum. So guys, if you're into the culture, if you're Wahabian, then you should always know what day and time it is. So that's something that our programmers have put into the national website. So just wanted to show you guys that. Hold up, let me, is there anything else we need to show the people out there? Oh yeah, and we have this, our clock, which is kind of like our sundial. Only got one hand, as you can see here. We use the mouse to kind of see where our hand is at, and then we have the hours, or the hours. Okay, I'm a little rusty on my Nuwapic words when it comes to the calendar. But you see we have the seal of the Yamasee here, and then the national Nuwapic seal, with the saber tooth and the Tamarian on. And that's about it, y'all. That's all I wanted to show today. So we're gonna shut this down and try to get into the lesson or what we want to talk about today. Now, I think I can move a little bit back over here, right? Okay. How was that? Okay. So first, I was reading a little bit on the HCM scrolls about Paul being a disciple or deceiver. This kind of fascinated me when I was reading it because I never knew before I got into the Holy Tabernacle Ministries that the New Testament is basically based on Paul. And Luke, Matthew, Mark, and John, those four guys wrote about the Old Testaments, the major minor prophets, going from Genesis to, I think, Malachi was the end of the Old Testament. I could be wrong there. But the thing that kind of fascinated me was this guy Paul was trying to get in with the disciples and try to change Jesus's his teachings, right? So I just kind of wanted to get into that real quick. So first thing we want to establish with Paul is that Paul, at first, he was a Pharisee. His father lived in Yemen, modern day Yemen, Benjamin, and then he moved to Yehuda, and then he came into Rome, I think it was a place called Titus, Rome, where he had Paul, right? He was a Moor. But he was a reformist, meaning he was a Pharisee or a Sadducee. But we know that Paul walked in that direction too as a reformist with the Pharisees. And so he developed some type of ideology from the Pharisees because one faction, the Sadducees, was going against the Pharisees, saying that, some people believed in the resurrection, some people don't believe in resurrection, waking up from the dead and becoming alive again. So that's where their ideology kind of changed. But they were all came from the Israelite, Judaic, or I don't like saying the word J, but the Yehudites, right? The Nazarenes. All their teachings came from there, which of course came from ancient Egypt and Sumer. So I first want to establish that Paul did not like the disciples. So if we turn, I'm going to read out of Acts 9:1, right? I think Acts is back this way. Acts, okay, here's the book of Acts. And I said 9:1. Okay, Acts 9, chapter 9, verse 1. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciple of the Lord, went unto the high priest. Right? So it clearly says he was breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord. We're going to find out who the Lord is but the Lord is Yeshua. In this case, would be the Rabbi, right? So verse 2, and desired of him letters to Damascus to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. So he's saying that on his way, he wants, first of all, he wants the high priest of the synagogue to send letters to Damascus, right? And then he says on his way to Damascus, if he finds anybody in support of the disciples of Christ, he's going to bring them bound on his way. Bound meaning restraints, basically in chains, right? To Jerusalem. And in verse 3, it says, as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. So, Nuwabians who went through HTM, who went through the schools, they already know what I'm about to get into. This talks about the vision that Paul had, that he said he met Jesus. But even in the vision, check out what Emmanuel, who the Romans are calling Jesus, Yeshua HaMashiach, check what he says here. So verse 4, and he fell to the earth, Paul or Saul, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest me? Right? So whoever this, it hasn't been revealed yet. We're going to keep going through it, but it hasn't been revealed yet. But who is saying persecute me? Very interesting. Who? Okay, he fell to the ground because he'd seen some light come down from the sky, right? The Shemayim. And he says, whoever this person is this entity is saying that, why are you persecuting me, right? Why are you persecuting me? So why is he persecuting them? 5, and he said, who art thou, Lord? Yeah, the same thing I was saying. Who is this talking? And the Lord said, so the narrator saying, the Lord said, I am Jesus, whom thou persecute. Is it hard for thee to kick against the pricks? Not going to front. I don't know what that means yet, but we're going to look at that. So Jesus is saying, why are you persecuting me? So we know that persecuting is to, I think the modern word would be prosecute. So when you prosecute someone, it's like you're going through like litigation, right? So you got your defendant and you got your plaintiff, the one who brought the suit, right? And so you can look at it like Paul is bringing a suit in this litigation against Jesus or Emmanuel, right? Why? And so Emmanuel says in his vision, why are you persecuting me? Now remember, this is not in the flesh. This is all a vision that Paul's having, right? Okay, so we're going to read 6. And he, trembling and astonished, said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, arise and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. So in this vision, Paul is begging for direction from Jesus, Emmanuel, in his vision, right? So he's saying, Lord, what must I do? What must I do? Well, how could I make it up to you for the persecution that I've done to you, right? So, okay, now 7 says, and the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man, right? So he said, obviously he was traveling with somebody, and when the vision came, and he was talking, and supposedly Jesus was talking to Paul, the men that were accompanying Paul on the way to Jerusalem heard something, but they didn't see anything, right? Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. Is it likely? No. So 8 says, and Saul arose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man, but they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus, right? And he was 3 days without sight, and neither did eat nor drink. 10. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias, and to him said the Lord in a vision, Ananias. And he said, Behold, I am here, Lord. So he went into Damascus, him and his people went into Damascus. He didn't eat for 3 days, he didn't drink anything for 3 days, and he met another disciple named Ananias. All right? And I'm going to stop right there, right? Because at the beginning, remember I read 9:1 that Saul wanted to basically kill the disciples, right? And then all of a sudden, because of this so-called vision that he had, now he wants to become a disciple. So let's get into that, because Paul did know some of the disciples, right? All right, so we'll turn to Acts 9:26. 9:26. All right, so 9:26. 9:26 is going to speak about Paul or Saul. They say Saul right here, but Saul is going to try to become a disciple to gain credibility for his own plot, for his own plan to do his own teachings. So let's get into Acts 9:26, which is written by Paul. So 9:26 says, And when Saul was come to Jerusalem, he essayed to join himself to the disciples, but they were all afraid of him and believed not that he was a disciple. So right there, and he wrote this book, right? He tried to give a true narrative as much as possible. So right there, that established by his own hand and pen that the disciples were afraid of him because what happened in Acts 9:1, that he told one of the Pharisees, the chief high priest of Pharisees of the synagogue, that, send letters out to all the synagogues to kill the disciples, right? So it makes sense that the disciples didn't really trust him, were afraid of him, and did not consider him a disciple of Hamashiach. So 27, let's go on. And Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles, and declared unto them how he had seen the Lord in the way, and that he had spoken to him, and how he had preached boldly at Damascus in the name of Jesus. So Barnabas was the comforter of men. Jesus considered him the closest male disciple, besides Mary of Migdal, but that's further down the line. He considered Barnabas very warm-hearted, very kind fellow. So when Paul was trying to make the pleadings to the disciples to let him in, all the disciples said no except Barnabas. So Barnabas is trying to convince the other disciples to trust Saul, right? Or Paul. I know I keep going back and forth, but to trust Saul. So right there, Saul's having a problem because he wants to have his own congregation and do his own thing. However, he needs the credibility of the disciples. He needs to be seen with the disciples, preaching with the disciples, right? So, 28, Acts 9:28 says, And he was with them coming in and going out at Jerusalem. And he spoke boldly in the name of the Lord Jesus and disputed against the Grecians. But they went about to slay him, right? So they're saying that he's really trying to show off now in front of the disciples. So when they went out of Jerusalem, he went into Greece and spoke boldly about, following the ways of Christ and all that stuff, right? And then the Greeks didn't like it, so the Greeks wanted to kill him, right? Okay, so 30 says, which when the brethren knew, they brought him down to Caesarea and sent him forth to Tarsus, right? So he basically, Caesarea was in, I believe, the Roman kingdom, right? Tarsus definitely was in the Roman kingdom. Then had the churches, 31, then had the churches rest throughout all Judea and Galilee and Samaria, and were edified, and walking in the fear of the Lord and in the comfort of the Holy Ghost were multiplied. And when it came to pass, as Peter passed throughout all quarters, he came down also to the saints which dwelt at Lydia. And there he found, 33, and there he found a certain man named Aeneas, which had kept his bed 8 years and was sick of the palsy. 34. And Peter said unto him, Aeneas, Jesus Christ makes thee whole. Arise and make thy bed. And he rose immediately. So Peter had the power. Peter had the power to heal, right? The Bible in this case is very short with Aeneas, the man who was sick with palsy. And when Peter came unto him, Peter mentioned that Christ will make you whole, or Hamashiach, Yeshua Hamashiach will make you whole. And then the man arose out of the bed. Now, the master teacher, Dr. Malachi Zadok York El, gets into healing and certain rituals, chants, and prayers that you can do, and a lot of other spiritual things that you can do to heal people. So, in my experience, evidence, and reasoning, Peter just didn't say, "Oh, make you whole." You know, he did some other physical acts and spoke those into existence to make the man who was in bed for 8 years with cerebral palsy get up and walk. But I'm straying from my point here. My point is, we wanna really tell the truth about Paul, how he was not a disciple. He never met Jesus, never touched him, never smelled him, never seen him with his own eyes in the flesh. And we want to tell how he goes against the law of Christ and Moses. Well, not Christ. Christ just came to fulfill the law. Moses started the law, right, with the Tanakh or the Torah. So let's go back to speaking about Acts 9:1. Acts 9:1 talks about Paul going to the Pharisee chief high priest and writing letters to other synagogues about how to kill the disciples. Now in St. John's 16:2, right, it talks about people who kill and they think that they're killing in the name of the Lord, but really they're not killing in the name of the Lord. They're killing in the name of something else. It definitely has nothing to do with the Lord. So 16:2, book of John, chapter 16, verse 2, it says, "They shall put you out of the synagogues. Ye, the time comes that whoever kills you will think that he does God's service." Right? So, in a way, the master teacher helped us link that verse to Acts 9:1, where Paul wants to kill the disciples. Now, they can't be working for the same God, right? They can't both be on the same team fighting against each other. This can go into cultural to this day where black people, Moors, can't get together for unity and work things out, right? So once you start creating divisions like Pentecostal, Baptist, Seventh-day Adventist, all these Christian sects, really Paulite sects, because Paul is the one who established Christianity. Now you're having a division between people in society where you really can't get nothing done. Or you might have had a hole meaning, and if you can tie this to any religion or organization, you have a whole, and once the whole gets split, once the devil splits the whole, you know, you got COINTELPRO, you have other secret agencies, not even from governments, corporations also have their own secret espionage. I think a couple of years ago, the Houston Astros were hacking into another baseball team's database, trying to find out their scouts and get the talent before they did. So there's all kind of, especially in this information age, where I could sit at home on my computer and hack your credit card. Right? There's people who are that talented, and it doesn't matter what corporations say, because you know I'm in IT. Everybody gets hacked. Everybody gets hacked. So I'll just put it to you like that. So let's go on. Let's try to put this into context. 16:3, John 16:3. And these things will they do unto you, because they have not known the Father nor me. Now, like I was saying before, they could have not been for the same God or for the same Elohim Yahweh, right? Because if Paul wants to kill the Son of God, who is Emmanuel, Yeshua HaMashiach, they couldn't have been fighting for the same God. So Paul was fighting for another God, and Yeshua was fighting for the righteous God, right? And righteous in Hebrew is Zadok, all right? So, like in 16:3, it just says that they have not known the Father, nor have they known me. 4. But these things have I told you, that when the time shall come, ye may remember that I told you of them. And these things I said not unto you at the beginning, because I was with you. So, and these sayings are coming from Christ, right? They're coming from Hamashiach. So he said, "You'll remember that I told you these things," right? He said, "You're going to remember that I told you that they're going to come, they're going to kill people." And you can say the same things for these crazy Muslims, right? You know, they were going around, Allah Akbar, boom, and they're killing people in the name of Allah. They're not killing people in the name of Allah. They're killing people in the name of Shaitan. They think, see, that's how slick the devil is. They think they're doing it in the name of Allah, but they do it in the name of Shaitan, because nor have they known the Father, nor have they known me. It says it right here in the scripture. So, you know, Emmanuel also said, I think he was walking and talking with John Zebedee, or maybe, I don't know, don't quote me on that, but I just know what he says here, right, in the book of John. So he says, I didn't tell you before because I was with you. You know, I was going to protect you. You know, my essence, my soul, my spirit, my knowledge, and the things that I know, and my wisdom, I was able to protect you. So I didn't need to tell you at the time. I will tell you when you're right with knowledge and that you're ready to accept what I have to say. Because I can't remember what verse it was, but Jesus said, basically, I have many things to tell you, but right now you can bear them not, because you're just not ready. He says, okay, I don't want to veer too far off, but what I'm trying to establish is that Christ, or Hamashiach, predicted people like Paul. He prophesied about people like Paul already, who would try to take over his teachings, who would go against the law of Moses, right? So let's get into some other passages in scriptures that will reveal more about Paul's character, right? Okay, so now let's see what's oh yeah, he definitely goes against Abraham also. Talks about, okay, so Chronicles. right? So Paul goes against the laws of circumcision that Abraham established with the Lord, right? And we'll reveal who the Lord is, right, one day, because the Lord is not just the Lord, right? The Lord had a name. The Lord is either from earth or not from earth, from the heavens, the Shemayim. And in Nuwabic, that's Leil. So let's get into how he dismissed the law of circumcision, right? So, and praise the master teacher. Praise the master teacher, man. Because without the master teacher, I would not be up here today speaking in front of you good people today. So, Book of Galatians is also written by Paul, right? Because he wrote like 80% of the New Testament. So now Paul is going to tell you that the Abrahamic covenant is no longer. For Gentiles, remember he's trying to get a Gentile following, right? So Galatians chapter 5, verse 2. Behold, I, Paul, say unto you, if ye be circumcised, Christ shall profit you nothing. If you get circumcised, he said, if you get circumcised, you're doing it, he said you're doing it in vain, you shall profit nothing, right? This is not, I can tell you right now, that's not the law that Yahshua Emmanuel followed, right? So right there, it's already a contradiction. He's fighting against the law of the Torah. So let's go to 13. For I testify, Paul, again to every man that is circumcised, that he is a debtor to do the whole law. Right? He said it's coming from me. I'm testifying up in here today that if you get circumcised, you'll have to follow the law. He said you'll become a debtor. He looked at it like a debtor to the whole law. Talking about the Torah, talking about the law of the Torah. Now, why would Christians follow this? This man is blatantly saying that you don't want to follow the law. It's such a burden to follow the law. Why would somebody want to follow the law? You become a debtor to the whole law. However, the law is there to protect people and protect tribes and nations. That's why you have laws, right? Like the law of gravity. If I go and jump off a cliff, if I knew the law of gravity, I would not do that because I know I would die, right? I would jump off and have a horrible death, right? So the law is there to protect you, not to look at, oh man, the law of gravity, oh man, it's no good, man. I'm just gonna go run and jump. And then you find out too late that the law was supposed to protect you. So that's this guy, Paul, he really rubs me the wrong way. However, let's continue. Verse 4. Christ is become of no effect to you. Whosoever of you are justified by the law, you are fallen from grace. Okay, so he's saying that if you follow the law, Christ is basically not with you. Christ. Now, understand, they're trying to make up their own Christ at this point, because their Christ is not Emmanuel, which is prophesied by the prophet Isaiah in Isaiah 7:14, right? And who they're talking about is not characteristic of Yeshua HaMashiach, right? And this is where the interpretation of Hebrew to Latin, this is where there's not a straight translation of who this person was, what law he fulfilled, right? We'll get into the laws that I like saying HaMashiach because that was the real person who was from the tribe of Yehuda, who was a Nazarene, right? So, and he had the nerve to say whoever is justified by the law, by the Torah, you have fallen from grace in the eyes of the Lord. So this guy Paul is just, and Christians follow this. This is why Christians need to read their own books. I tell my mama to read the book. You know, she want to rely on the preacher man, Mr. Pork Chop Man, to tell her the scriptures. But it's like the master teacher said, it's the blind leading the blind. So now at this point, I feel it's my duty to clear things up and to reiterate and echo again what the master teacher was saying years ago and what all true student teachers are echoing today, is that the truth needs to get out, right? And we need to start, at least at the HTM, we need to start at a basic level to reach the people, right? And create more student teachers of Marduk Yanun, right? So, chapter 5, verse 5. For we through the Spirit wait for the hope of righteousness by faith, right? 6. For in Jesus Christ, check this out, for in Jesus Christ, neither circumcision avails anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which works by love. Excuse me. So he's saying it doesn't matter whether you're circumcised or not, as long as you love, right? No. This is Gentile teaching. This is why Christians are Gentiles, because they don't follow the Torah. They don't know the Tanakh, the Torah, and they don't, and they think it's okay for this bestiality thinking, because only a beast, even beasts, some beasts operate by laws, but the laws of the universe will always prevail. So just because you love what? You could love sin, right? So it's not, this is all false teachings by Paul. And I'm going to cut it off there. I just want to establish my point, to the congregation online, that this guy Paul is no good. He's no good. Yeah. Throat getting a little dry. So, I think we've established our point on who Paul is and was. He was a attacker of Hamashiach, right? Where did I word it? Okay, let's get into Galatians 1, the first chapter. No, that's not what I didn't want to get to that part already. I wanted to. Let's go to Romans 3:7. This is what I want to speak to you guys about today. That's at the Holy Tabernacle Ministries. I always want to get the truth out. Always. Need the bookmarks on these chapters, but that's okay. Here we go. Okay. So if we turn to Romans 3:7, we're going to find out more revealing attributes about Paul. We're going to, and he wrote the book of Romans too. I don't know what year, but he wrote the book of Romans before 100 AD, somewhere in that time frame. So we're going to talk about Romans chapter 3, verse 7, because this is like the cream on the cake, the cherry on the pie, so to speak. So we're going to get into the characteristics and the attributes of Paul, who all Christians follow today. So obviously, he did a pretty good job in deceiving the world, right? Right. But with the new sun cycle coming in, the Aquarius age, we know that time is up. Okay, so Romans 3:7. For if the truth of God had more abounded through my lie unto his glory, why yet am I also judged as a sinner? Right? Why am I judged as a sinner? I'm talking about the Lord, and I'm up here lying to everybody. I'm not telling the truth. I'll say something to you, just to get you to come and give me money and tithes. Who does this sound like today? Because see, when you're the head of something, your personality, your attributes trickle down to the people, right? Like you got what? Trump, right? Trump, who did he activate? What dying cell or group of people did he activate? Like the Nazis, the skinheads, all these things are happening because they see this guy representing their interests and they fired up, right? Now, Paul is representing his own interests here, right? And he's firing up the Gentiles, the people who are not from the tribe of Yehuda, the reformists from Israelite, everybody who's not really under the covenant of Abraham or Ibrahim, he's firing them up because they didn't have nothing to talk about before. Like, we're not Israelites, we're not in the covenant, we can't do anything. We are outside of the covenant. Paul is falsely trying to bring them into a covenant. It's not an Abrahamic covenant, but this is his own covenant. This is his own covenant that he's trying to establish. And he's directly going against the Israelite covenant, right? So he just said, I lied. I lied to get you people in here. Why am I judged as a sinner, right? So he's operating off of more of unrighteous laws and said, okay, let's go on to 8. And not rather, as we be slanderously reported, and as some affirm that we say, let us do evil, that good may come, whose damnation is just. So he's saying, let us do evil. And he's saying that the damned are just, right? He says in 9, what then? Are we better than they? No, in no wise, for we have before proved both Jews and Gentiles that they are all under sin. I don't know how he proved this, but he says we've proved in no wise, meaning we're not wise or anything, but we prove that the Jews and Gentiles are under sin, right? So he's trying to tie in the Gentiles with the Yehudites. Remember, because there's no word named Jew. No Jew word back then. There's no J in Hebrew, right? So, 10. As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. Okay, so if you're a Christian today, and I just read that to you, he said it is written. I don't know where this is written. He would have to say where this is written. He can't confirm his source here. So he said, it is as it is written, there is none righteous. No, not one. So he's saying everybody's a sinner. Nobody follows rules. Everybody is unrighteous. We're all damned. That the damned are just. He's trying to tie it into doing evil is good and good is evil. This is a very dangerous person, right? Paul's a very dangerous man. Because he said not one. So he's saying, for Christians, he's saying that Jesus Christ ain't even righteous. He said that the Son of God is not righteous. This is what he's telling Christians. This is who the Christians follow. Mark my word. They follow this. All right? So 11. There is none that understands. There is none that seeks after God. He said nobody seeks after God. No one understands, right? Not even the prophets. Not even those who incarnated into the flesh to bring us a message. He says they don't understand. So Paul, his works of evil have been captured for us to see today, right? Because we know who the good folks are, but sometimes we don't know who the bad folks are. Because the bad folks practice, well, if it's out in the open that they're bad, that's one thing, right? But if they're sitting in seats of power, and they got the power to write statutes and legislate or enforce legislation, and these people are somehow trying to tell you what they're doing is right. But if you got the law in your heart, you already know that this ain't right. If you got the law here and here, you know that what they're doing is not right. And you not seeking after the Creator, which I'll say that this instance of the word God here, since it's in the New Testament, they mean a singular deity. If it was in the Old Testament, we would say Elohim, of course. So Paul is not a good person, y'all. He's not a good person. Let's go on to 12. They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable. There is none that does good, no, not one. So he's saying that everybody is damned. There's nobody who's righteous. Everybody's doing this for profit. That's basically what he's saying. He's saying there's not good, there's nobody good, not one. So he's a very bleak vision of the human spirit, right? So 13. He's also, I believe, trying to, and I do say believe, or I can infer, that he's trying to tie this scripture into where, in Genesis, where it says, where the Lord saw that evil was in the heart of men continuously. However, certain people were spared, right? Lot was spared. So the Lord did see that some people were righteous, right? And you'll find out that somebody blew up Sodom and Gomorrah, right? If you have El's Holy Torah, which we could go into next week, or we try to do this every 2 weeks, right? So you'll see that he didn't blow up the whole planet. He just blew up those who were unrighteous, right? Those who dealt in perverse fornication or fornication with the same sexes, murder, theft, everything that makes you a diabolical being. So the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, his angels, right? He didn't blow up the whole world because the whole world was not in sin, right? This is something that they made up, right? So let's get into this more. 13, Galatians 3:13. Their throat is an open sepulchre. With their tongues they have used deceit. The poison of ops is under their lips. All right. Sepulchre. Forgot what that word meant. I should know this. Okay, well, we won't go into that. I will not try to break that down. See, I'm not the preacher. I'm not a preacher like that, right? If I don't know what something means, I tell you I don't know what it means. I will look it up and we'll go back over this. But I think I've established that Paul is trying very hard to change the teachings of HaMashiach, Yeshua HaMashiach, Emmanuel. So, and the law of Moses and the Abrahamic covenants. So, let's get into Galatians 1:13. That was wrong, I think. Galatians. Okay, here we go. Galatians 1:13. For ye have heard of my conversation in times past in the Jews' religion, how that beyond measure I persecuted the church of God and wasted it. All right, he said, you heard. He's like, yeah, man. He kind of bragging, like, yeah, man. You heard that, I made a lot of money off the Jewish religion, and then I persecuted it and I destroyed it, man. He said, I wasted it. He said, I destroyed it. The church of God. So, I see a lot of Hebrew Israelites on the corner yelling at people and using Paul's books. So, well, they're Paulites. They're not Christians. They're not from the tribe of Yehuda. They're not Israelites. They're definitely Christians, because we've already established this is the epistle of Paul the apostle to the Galatians, right? We've already established that this guy didn't even like the church of God, right? He didn't like us talking about God, like following Elohim and abiding by the laws of the righteous Elohim, right? He wants to destroy that, right? Actually, let's read a couple of verses in here and put a little bit of context behind what we're saying. So verse 14, and profited in the Jews' religion above my equals in mine own nation, right? So he said, I profited in money and in a following, being more exceedingly zealous of the traditions of my fathers. So he's saying, I'm really emphatic about following the traditions, not of Yehuda, but of the Pharisees, the reformers. Okay, hold on, y'all. Okay, now we won't get into that. Okay, I think we're about to wrap this up. As we bring it to a close, I do want to let's go to Matthew 5. Matthew's 5. Luke, which is the first book of the New Testament, right? Matthew's 5. 5. So Matthew's 5:17. So this is what Christ is saying, right? Because we're dealing with laws. We're dealing with the law of the flesh, which is Paul's law, the carnal law, the law where evil is good and good is evil, right? So the devil talks and double talk like that. That's why you'll see in the Amon, our Constitution, that Amon Constitution, which will be here this week, we have laws against double talk and laws against people try to talk real fast and try to slip things by you. You won't be part of the Amon too much longer speaking like that, okay? So Matthew's 5:17 says, think not that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have come not to destroy, but to fulfill. 18, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Right? This is what Christ is saying. I believe he's saying this to the disciples. Or he has some type of audience. Yeah, he's saying it to the multitudes. Okay, so he's saying to the multitudes of people. He's saying to the multitudes of the people as he went up to the mountain with his disciples that came up with him. So he's saying this to a lot of people, including the disciples. He said, one tittle, one dot, one letter is not going to change from this law, from the law of the Torah, but to fulfill. And then he says in verse 5:18 that till all be fulfilled. Until it's all fulfilled, that law is not supposed to change. Now, I've already went through how Paul tried to change the law and how Paul tried to create a link between him and the disciples, and how this is the birth of Christianity, right? This is the beginnings of what you're calling Christianity, right? So I think for now we'll wrap it up. and I'll have more details for you next week about this guy named Paul, who Christ supposedly named him Saul, right? And then he changes his name to Paul, and Paul is a Latin word. So, you know, till 2 weeks from now, this is Minister Mudhuta Dudima Kahagadu El for the Holy Tabernacle Ministries 720. And hope to see you guys next week. Peace in the Lamb. Follow the Lamb wherever he goes. Walk with him. He taught us all for 30-something years. That was the half an hour of the hour. Or of the man of the hour, right? No pun intended. So we're gonna wrap it up. Definitely check out unm.net for any contact information. You'll find the phone number on there too. I can't remember right now. You'll find the phone number on there too. And hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks. Until then, Wadu.